Good morning, and welcome to the Digital Delivery and Transportation session as part of PennDOT's first ever Virtual Innovation Week. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Danielle Klinger-Grumbine with PennDOT's Bureau of Innovations, and I will be your host for today's session. I'd like to kick things off today with a welcome message from PennDOT Deputy Secretary for Highway Administration, Melissa Batula.
Hi, I'm Melissa Batula, Deputy Secretary for Highway Administration here at PennDOT, and I'm so glad you've taken the time to join us. So our sessions today will cover a wide range of topics that reflect how we at PennDOT and the transportation sector overall are embracing change to improve what we do, especially during these challenging and unusual times. Technology is the key to bridging the generational gap that we must address as we move our business forward. As our employees retire and pass the baton to future generations like our millennials and our Gen Z, embracing technology and all it has to offer will be crucial to attracting new people into our field. Frankly, two of my passions in leading PennDOT's Highway Administration Deputy are digital delivery and augmented reality, which will both be among the future topics we will cover today. So under digital delivery, it allows us to better visualize our improvements in the real world of 3 dimensions instead of static 2-dimensional plans, such as PDFs. And this will provide us the backbone of data-rich information coming from design and being able to use it in all aspects of our business, from how we construct our projects through the maintenance of our assets. With augmented reality, we can see the improvements in real-world detail right from the start of the design process. So these are the goggles that allow you to overlay the digital design into the real-world environment and see that window of what it will be looking like as you're looking through it from today's viewpoint. So aside from the efficiency and the improved product delivery that these advances provide, they also serve as the bridge to attract the new generations into our transportation field. Of course, at the end of design, we need to have the workforce there to physically build our roads and our bridges and ultimately maintain them. We know that our newer staff already thrive in the use of simulations through, say, video games and are very tech savvy. By embracing these technologies, we show to the new generation that that same environment exists in the workplace, and it will certainly be more attractive to those careers that we're creating. So the irony that we're facing right now is the challenges presented to us by the ongoing COVID pandemic have really propelled us to embrace our use of technology and allows us to continue to manage our business in a more isolated world. In a recent PennDOT article, John Myler, Assistant Construction Manager in our District 11 office and in the Pittsburgh region, noted that the technological advances PennDOT is embracing are sending a positive message that PennDOT is a cutting-edge agency where careers can be built for the long term. So again, my thanks for taking the time to experience firsthand how PennDOT's moving forward. My hope is that we will share valuable lessons that can assist each of you in delivering the very best transportation services for the people of Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Batula. Following each presentation today, there will be a facilitated question and answer period. If you have any questions for our speakers during today's session, please use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen to submit your questions. We will take questions in the order in which they were received. If we do not get to certain questions, if we have time at the end of today's session, we will circle back to those questions. If for some reason we do not get to some of the questions today, we will follow up with our presenters after the session to get the answers, and we will distribute them to all of the participants. Throughout the Virtual Innovation Week, I also encourage you to view the more than 50 innovative tools, materials, applications, and technologies on display in our virtual exhibit hall. You can visit www.penndot.gov/innovationsweek. These innovations are being used by federal, state, and local agencies and could help you do your job safer, better, faster, and save money. There is even a contact form on the virtual exhibit hall page that will allow you to submit any questions you have about a particular innovation. And finally, before I introduce our first speaker, please be advised that this session is being recorded. Following the event, we plan to make the recordings available on the event website. Again, that is www.penndot.gov/innovationsweek. Also, once the session has ended today, if you click on the link that you received in the calendar invitation, you will actually be able to hear a playback of today's session. Our first speaker for today is Alan Melly, who is the Digital Delivery Lead in PennDOT Bureau of Project Delivery. And I'd like to welcome Alan.
Thank you, Danielle. Again, my name is Alan Melly, and I am leading up PennDOT's Digital Delivery Directive 2025. So, what is digital delivery? The basis of digital delivery is really building deliverables for computers. These deliverables are both human readable and machine readable. So digital delivery, it's the use of digital data to deliver projects. It's going to be the transfer of relevant information from design to construction to asset management. Right now, whenever we design a project, we gather quite a bit of data in that design aspect of the project. We then break that information into 2D plan sheets to deliver out to construction. What we want to do is to break that cycle and continue the movement of that relevant information from design to construction. Then right now in our asset management, we get a red line plan that is, marked up, and then we get that back to the department with that is considered our as-built plan. Well, we want to be able to make that full life cycle of a project and to bring that relevant information back to the department. So we're going to go from design to construction to asset management, and to be able to use that data again and again. Okay, so it will offer us a new way to view and understand the design in the field. So whenever we put out a digital project, it could be a 3D model. So your inspectors, contractors will be able to view this in ways that we've never been able to view the projects before. You're going to be able to see the bridge and the roadway all together in one view. You're going to be able to rotate. You'll be able to cut a cross section wherever you may need, not just at the ones that were provided previously. And it's going to be a way for us to capture that as-built information during construction. Right now, we, as the department, are good at capturing roadway information as far as your pavement and your bridge information. But of all of our other ancillary assets, we're not as good at tracking those assets. So with this, we will be able to track every asset that we have as it moves through the project. If we want to understand where a certain type of paint line is or delineator, we'll be able to query all of that information to be able to find out exactly where they are located statewide. So the Digital Delivery Directive for PennDOT is really a time to embrace a new way of doing things. We've always done, the design the same way. It doesn't matter if it was back drawing on the drawing boards or today in today's CAD station. But why? We need to start thinking outside the box and change everybody's mindset because that's how we've always done it. We need to innovate and look for ways to improve what we're doing and be able to show different ways of our design intent. We need to stop taking that smart data that we're developing during that design process and breaking it into less meaningful pieces. So there we go. So PennDOT's vision. So by 2025, construction projects will have the ability to be bid using 3D technology and no longer be in a traditional construction plan format. This will include the also plans, such as your traffic control plan, your E&S plan. But we do realize there will be projects that don't lend themselves necessarily to be designed in 3D, but will lend themselves to being digitally designed. Again, that is taking that relevant information from design into construction back to asset management. We'll be able to track, again, those paint lines. A paint line project, for example, would not be ideal for a 3D design, but would be for a digital project. You'll be able to put that into your design, get it out to construction. Construction will be able to view exactly where it needs to go. Whenever they're doing their as-built, they'll be able to add attribute information right to that line to determine exactly what type it is, manufacturer, get all of that relevant information, and then it brings it back into our asset management system. So where is PennDOT and where are we going? Are we going to advance? There we go. So right now, we are just finishing up our phase 1 for this project. That was our planning phase. In this phase, we broke the state into 4 different regions, reached out to each district and our partners. Our partners included ACEC, APC, Federal Highways. The districts identified a champion. We went through each of these regional meetings to figure out what was working, what wasn't working, to try to gather all of that relevant information as we put together a strategic plan. We gathered with our district champions and partners to develop the strategic plan, which is now currently in executive review and should be released to the public here, hopefully by the end of the month. And that really sets the stage for phase 2, where it's the bulk of our initiative. In this phase, we're going to be working on pilot projects, looking at our processes, procedures, our CAD standards and processes, procedures, and then again, that asset management portion of it. Now, we're not going to necessarily flip a light switch and have, a complete digital project right away. We are going to be taking this piece by piece. So we're going to implement various pieces of this in pilot projects across the state. And as we figure out that some of these items work, we are then going to implement as we progress through this. So by the time we hit that 2024-2025 timeframe, we will be able to have our complete updated policies and procedures on how to deliver a project digitally and deliver a complete project with the model as the legal document for this initiative. So what are the benefits of moving towards digital delivery? Digital delivery is going to improve our design quality, reduce risk and project costs, increase construction efficiency, and improved as-built records. So with improved design quality, once everyone starts designing using a model-based approach, it will be easier to review the quality of the design intent. A 3D environment allows you to view the design in a way that was just not possible with 2D plans. A model-based design approach will give us the opportunity to review our design intent before we bid the projects. And we'll be able to see the roadway and bridge design details together, which will allow us to find issues early on. Okay, so reduce risk and project cost. Right now, as we are designing in a plan-centric approach, which is represented by line 3, we put a lot of our time and effort into the project in that plan sheet development. Now, with this digital delivery, it does not necessarily take us less time to design a project. It's where that time is spent. Our time is going to be spent more in the detailed design. So with that, in your detailed design, which is represented by the green line, line 4, you'll be able to affect the cost of those design changes. It's a lot less costly to make a change at the beginning of a project than it is later on. So with digital delivery, we'll be able to put more effort and time into that detailed design because we're not developing those plan sheets. So increased construction efficiency. In addition, with the 3D deliverables, contractors will be able to leverage all of this information with their automated machine guidance equipment and survey equipment to check the grades. So today, contractors are using the equipment based on the 3D models they develop from our contract plans. So during construction, inspectors will be able to use their mobile devices with model viewing software to actually determine exactly where they are located. So the 3D models for construction will offer us an opportunity to extract attributes of these elements right there. So you'll be able to look up the pay items, the units, the level in which it was drawn on in CAD, the description of the object, the actual length. We'll be able to attach pictures. You'll be able to attach the standards right to an element. As coming up through the design ranks to get that design intent out to construction is vital. Sometimes in construction, they have no idea why the heck the design put it in this way. Well, this will help us, convey that design intent to our consultants or contractors and inspectors that are looking at it. We can add pictures. We can add, 2D details. There'll be so much information that we will be able to add to this model that to convey, again, that design intent. So again, we will get back the improved as-built records. Right now, you can see on the left-hand side, this is what 2D plan sheet comes back as an as-built record. If that guide rail changed, they highlight that guide rail, and that's what you get back with a crossed off tab and summary sheet to show you what length came back. But with 3D models, we will get that actual design and be able to incorporate the actual design into what a 3D model that we plan to build as the department, which will be considered our digital twin. What we would like to do is build this digital twin for our entire network. Now, that's going to take quite a few years till we actually build this out. But again, you have to start somewhere. So with that information, we'll be able to bring in all of the 3D models that have been created across the state. That way, we don't lose that information that we're losing now. Right now, again, we lose that information when we transfer from that 3D design to a 2D plan sheet and out to construction. We want to keep all of that information and then build upon that. So when a utility goes to put a new gas line or water line into our right-of-way, that we identify exactly where that's at and then build that back into that digital twin that we would like to develop. That way, in the future, when another project comes out there, we know exactly where all of those attributes are as we move forward. So again, digital delivery is that full life cycle of a project that we're transferring that relevant information that we're developing in design all the way through to our asset management system. So with that, that was a quick overview of what digital delivery is and where the department is going. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much.
Ellen.
Now take it over to Ken to see if we have any questions from our audience.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle and Alan. We do have a couple of questions here. One person asked, how will this work with local and grant-related projects? Will a requirement be put into place eventually, if not 3D? This would be great, but would eliminate some bidders who make it more competitive.
At this point, this is basically a tool in our toolbox that we are at the beginning stages of development. It's going to take quite a bit of time just to get all of our projects into this, so I do not see this being a requirement for locals anytime soon. We will have the process down and developed that if the locals want to adopt that, they can easily use what we've developed to move in with their programs as well. With our initial pilots, we are going to go after low risk projects that, low barrier to entry, not very difficult projects. So we're not going to start out with, the I-95 corridor in Philadelphia. You're going to be looking at, 2-lane or a widening project and so forth. So it's going to take some time to build on, but we will get there. And the process will be in place to, again, allow others to adopt it as well.
Alan, also, what software is PennDOT planning to use to facilitate digital delivery?
Right now, our design software internally is the Bentley suite of products. Now, there is a nationwide push. It's been adopted by ASPHALT. It's called IFC. It's a file format that is going to be readable by basically any software vendor. You can almost look at it as a PDF. Back, years ago, you'd have, your Word and Works and so forth, and they would not communicate between each program. That's the same way a lot of our engineering programs are currently. They don't talk very easily with each other. So with this IFC file format, we are developing, this as software agnostic as possible with the process for digital delivery. But with moving towards that IFC file format, you're going to be able to utilize any of the software programs that, your organization chooses.
Alan, thanks. We have a couple of more questions here, but given the concerns for time starting out, we'll hold on to these until at the end of all presentations and see if we have some time remaining. Otherwise, we'll follow up after the sessions with Q&A accordingly.
Sure.
Thanks, Alan.
Sure.
Danielle?
Yes, thank you, Alan. Thank you, Ken. So our next speakers for today are Jason Zhang, who is the Assistant District Executive for Construction, and Kevin Lira, who is the Chief of Surveys, both in PennDOT's District 11. And I'd like to welcome Jason and Kevin to today's session.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Ken, for having us. Excited to talk about the drone use that we've been doing here the last couple of years. So UAS stands for Unmanned Aircraft Systems. Talk about what we've been doing to date. Waiting for the slide to move here. What we've been doing to date, the steering committee that we put together. Some of the key work groups that we've put together, and let's see if it moves. There we go. Some of the primary initiatives, what we're trying to get from this, and also and then Kevin's going to talk about some of the things that we've done in District 11, just some examples of the flights that we've done, and just so people can see the kind of data that we get. So, so this started back in 2018. PennDOT made the purchase of its very first drone for the department, and the intent there was that District 1 and District 11 would share that drone. So that's what we did, and for almost a year we shared it, and we were doing flights, and actually we learned very quickly that the demand for the drone, just the uses were just so great, and just saved so much time and safety, and just the data that we were getting, the photos were just fabulous. So we quickly decided that we needed to get a meeting together, and the Bureau of Innovations got involved, and they did a tremendous job putting together a work group and a meeting to figure out, okay, where are we heading with this? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? How we get there? And to try to formalize and sort of put a process into place on how we're going to get to where we're trying to get. So during that, it was a 2-day meeting. During that 2-day meeting, we identified work groups. And then we and through all of this, the flights have been ongoing since 2018, and they're ongoing today. So we actually got another drone last year for District 11. So District 1 and 11 each had their own drone. And since then, just in 2020, we've actually got 3 more drones. So we have 4 now. We've got a couple that were intended for bridge inspection, and then we've got a couple that are good for survey data and things like that. So the steering committee, I'm not going to say all the names, but it's just so you could just get an idea of the cross section of folks that we have involved. And during that meeting we had last year, we had people from the Turnpike involved. So we're really trying to involve as many people as we can. Got a lot of experts in various fields here with survey and design and construction and maintenance. So again, a nice cross section of folks that are part of this. And then just to talk about the work groups, so we just identified some uses and therefore some leads to lead these initiatives for each group to see, okay, surveys. Kevin Lear is Chief of Surveys in District 11. He's been involved with the drone since day one. He has his own drone, and he just is a drone person, right? Kevin's leading what we're doing in surveys. Rich Runyon is looking at how can we use drones in bridge inspection. Vince Mazzocchi is looking at how can we use them for incident management. For example, if there's an accident on a parkway or on an interstate, you can fly the drone up, you can get an idea of the queue. Obviously, when traffic starts getting backed up, you can't get there easily. A drone's a great way to get some information. Also, like for barge hits on bridges at night, instead of getting a crane out there or putting our inspectors in a boat in the darkness, perhaps we can be using a drone for that. So there's tons of uses. There's an IT component of this. Obviously, the data that we're getting, the file sizes are big. The photos are tremendous quality. The videos are tremendous quality. And how do you transfer that data across VPNs and across networks? And where do we store this? Public relations is probably one of the biggest advantages that I've seen so far of so many different advantages. But the photos that we're getting of our projects are just tremendous, and we can share them with the public and just give the public a great view of what we're doing. It sort of captures everything. So there's just a lot there with the media and how we can show them what the great work that we're doing day to day. Human resources, we just want to make sure that we're taking everything into account regarding how we use these drones, who's flying them, we're making sure we're doing it safely, we're getting people trained, and we're not breaking any rules. And then there's a miscellaneous, because there's so many more things, and every day we learn another use, or we find another way that we can use a drone. Like, for example, during the pandemic, we flew a drone to get a video for a final project inspection to keep people from congregating out together at a big meeting in the field. Used the drone, we sent it out to everybody, they could see the completed project. So Kevin's going to talk about that a little bit more. The initiatives, what's the best drone for the particular application? These drones cost anywhere from $100 to, I think, $60,000, $70,000, probably even more than that. So we want to make sure we're investing correctly, we're getting the right drone. We want to give folks direction on what to get. We're looking at training for our folks right now. We don't have training. It's in the works, it's in development, but it's not ready yet. We got to get our folks FAA certified to fly. We have to make sure they're familiar with our policies at PennDOT. Safety is of utmost importance. Obviously, you're talking about something that's in the air, flying above things and people and vehicles, which they're actually not supposed to be flying over traffic. But again, safety is number one. We cannot afford to have an accident with a drone. Again, exploration of uses, there's too many to get into in a 15-minute presentation, but there's so much to do. And if you tie it with the 3D design that Alan just went through, it just really blends perfectly. Again, the IT requirements that I already sort of covered, and then the HR concerns that I already covered. So that's sort of what we're trying to get to. We've used it in construction. We've done a lot, and I'll let Kevin take over here talk about some of the flights that he's done. You could actually see some of the data that we've gotten, and it's really exciting when you see it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin, and thank you, and I'll be here for questions.
Thanks, Jason. Good morning, everyone. This is Kevin Lira. I'm the District 11 Chief of Surveys. I'm a professional land surveyor and also an FAA Part 107 certified remote pilot. As Jason said, approximately 2 years ago, we began looking into the use of drones for surveying, construction monitoring, bridge inspection. So we began to research what was available and what the requirements were. We dug through all the literature online to find out how to get FAA certified, and 4 of us did that and went and took the test and got our certifications. PennDOT also has their own certification process, which it's mainly geared towards our policy and the uses, some of the additional things we require that are beyond FAA certification. So one of the first things that was done was looking into stockpile quantities for maintenance. Sometimes that's very hard to do with people in the field climbing around on material. There's a safety factor, and also the overall accuracy of where you take all the shots. The drone's able to create a 3D model of the stockpile, and we can calculate a volume from that. We'll see a slide of that later. We also have been looking a lot into bridge inspection. One of our bridge inspectors is certified, and we've been going out and testing our drone, what we're able to capture and see with them, and potential safety and effort saving for those projects. We also have started using it in survey. We use it with caution. Survey data obtained from them can be relative to photogrammetry accuracy. It's not quite as good as getting an actual rod on the ground and doing conventional survey, but it's very close. So you just need to weigh off what accuracies you need versus a cost and time savings. And Jason, the construction unit, they've been using it for monitoring projects and documenting progress as the projects go. And probably the best use is the site photos. They're very high resolution and can take some pretty dramatic photos. So this is a sample of a 3D model created. Sorry, I went too far ahead. This is a sample of a 3D model created at one of our stockpile sites. And after the images are processed, the software, which we use context capture, will create a 3D model. Some of it gets a little pixelated, similar to if you look in Google Earth, some of the images look a little fuzzy. But over in this area, this was a stockpile. And if you 3D model that and then go around the perimeter, create an existing surface, you can calculate a volume in that stockpile. Both District 11 and District 1 have been doing that, and we find it to be very accurate for that type of use. This is a photo of Jason said we did this for a final inspection on a project. This was a slide project. And instead of everyone congregating at the site, we took photos and video and provided that to everyone to look at their home or their home office, and eliminated a crowd at the site. So you could, we probably took 100 photos of all different angles for everyone to see. So it's very useful for that. And these are just a couple sample photos of our bridge inspection attempts. You can see in the lower left the bridge pier, some of the details you can see up under. You do have to be careful under a bridge. You lose GPS signal, and sometimes that affects the ability to control the drone. And we're looking into ways of getting around that. The photo on the right is just a pretty nice photo of the bridge. That's along the Ohio River. This project was the Shaler Street Bridge. It's between the Fort Pitt Tunnel and the West End Circle in Pittsburgh. That bridge was built off-site and done with ABC techniques. If you look in the top right, that's the bridge that was built off-site, and underneath they put in a mobile transporter. They're getting ready to move that one section. The lower left, that's showing the tight clearance they had when they moved the bridge into place along the side of that building, so that we were able to document the move and it showed that it was clear. The lower right, that's a bridge in place when it was set down, and the inspectors and engineers are looking at that to make sure that it's seated properly. So this is just a picture of the Birmingham Bridge. On September 22nd, I believe, Secretary Gramian was in our district for a day to look at our sites and take a tour. We met her at the Birmingham Bridge to show her the drone's abilities, the resolution of the photos and cameras. We flew out around the pier, took some photos and pictures. The right-hand picture, that's us standing on a boat launch at the bridge. Secretary's in the center of the photo. So you can see the photos are very high resolution and helpful for a lot of projects. I think that's all I have. So probably some questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason and Kevin. We'll now go over to are any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. We have a couple of questions pending here right now. Can the drones provide live video feed when on projects?
Yes, we're going to be able to do that. We're getting software called Kitty Hawk. That's a management system to document the flights and plan them. Kitty Hawk software has the ability to live feed to anyone else that has the program. So if we have a copy of the program loaded on a computer in the office, that person would be able to live feed that video. I'm also been in contact with the Ohio Department of Transportation, and they have a mobile box that they use for broadcasting signals to live from the field. We're trying to find out more information about that.
Okay, and one more question to go here, so far. How are you approaching the legal aspects of property privacy when you're expanding beyond your legal rights of way?
Actually, it's unless we're actually specifically intending to take pictures of somebody's private property, we really only just have to give them a courtesy just to let them know we're going to be flying in the area. But it's similar to like airplanes, where pilots of airplanes don't have to notify property owners that they're flying over their property. You can imagine that would be nearly impossible. So drones are similar to that. We can fly over properties. We just have to give people a courtesy call, just to let them know we will be there. Legally, that's really all we're required to do.
Yeah, that's in our PennDOT policy. If the photos or video is the intent is their property, we notify them. If they're in the background, it's no different than when we do photogrammetry mapping and take photos. We're not intending to be having them be the focus of the photos. It's called right of reasonable privacy. If someone has a concern that we may be invading their privacy, they can respond to the notice of intent to enter and let us know.
Okay, let me take one more question if we could. When are UAVs going to start being issued to the districts and district personnel being trained? Is there a plan for that at all, or what is that plan moving forward?
Not currently. As soon as we get through the steering committee and some of the recommendations out of that, we'll identify how we can create training. Here in District 11, we basically trained ourselves as a group, the 4 of us. Just saw what we could find, shared it, and helped each other study for the test. It's basically, the information is through the FAA. You can get manuals and study materials for that test. But there is no current PennDOT sponsored training program yet.
Okay, Kevin, Jason, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both. A really quick programming note, on Friday, November 6th, in our morning session from 9 to 11, our multimodal planning session, Tony McCluskey, who's the director of PennDOT's Bureau of Aviation, is also going to be talking about unmanned aerial systems from an instruction and safety perspective. So if you have not yet registered for that particular session and you're interested in hearing a little bit more about UAS from the instruction and safety perspective, please email dotinnovations@pa.gov and we can get you registered for that particular session. So just a little quick programming note. So our next speaker this morning is Senior Manager of the Traffic Services Division for PennDOT's District 6, Francis Haney. We'd like to welcome Fran to today's session. Fran, you now have control.
Thank you very much, Danielle, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. The presentations so far have been very interesting and informative. I hope mine is equally informative and informational. So when the pandemic began, all the construction was put on hold save for life-sustaining activities, mainly utility work, things like that. So we were scrambling. How are we going to inspect these things? How are we going to verify projects as being sufficient and being done, you know, in a way that meets PennDOT standards, policies, practices, those sorts of things. And a particular project had a tight time frame where they were replacing a bridge, and they had to get it done in a narrow window because of bog turtles. And, you know, it was immediately suspended, and it was a major arterial roadway that had a bridge being replaced with an HOP associated with a YMCA. And, you know, in thinking about it, you know, we said to ourselves, well, why couldn't we just use technology to do this? Everyone has a computer these days. We're all working from home. There are means of doing this. So we came up with the idea, well, why not virtual inspection? You know, as an electronic means of verifying the construction is being performed correctly in accordance with standards. It was an alternative because our inspectors at the time were not allowed to go out into the field. That has since obviously opened up somewhat, but we figured these jobs have to go on, and these contractors also had a vested interest in making sure that their work was going to be accepted by PennDOT, because it's a heck of a lot of money, a lot of material, men, you know, costs, equipment, everything else out there, to only have PennDOT come along later and say, well, we didn't witness that trench being backfilled. How do we know what's under there? Well, the governor said we can keep going. We're life-sustaining. Rather than, you know, get caught in that conundrum, we decided to innovate and come up with a means of virtual inspection. And we needed to do this to keep these life-sustaining projects moving forward while ensuring the quality was maintained. So we coined the term virtual inspection as a tool to verify compliance. Our number one partners at the time were utilities because they were doing the bulk of the life-sustaining work. What we discovered was that they were having their foremen complete forms that, standard utility forms that basically covered all this stuff, backfill requirements, materials certifications, different things like that. They were already doing this. So what our people did was we took those forms, we modified them, and we turned them into PennDOT forms with instructions, contacts, and I'll show you them in a moment. And we utilized them to document this construction along with technology. Everyone has a cell phone. Every cell phone has a camera. Every foreman's truck has a laptop. I mean, these are tools that were already on site. These were forms that these foremen were already doing for their companies. At that same time, I was invited to participate in a statewide task force to develop official COVID-19 policy during the pandemic. And we had just created this virtual inspection at the time, and I introduced it to the group. They liked it so much that it was adopted for use statewide. So in coming up with these packets, they contain clear, concise instructions. Right now we have two. One is for trench restoration and the other one is for paving. They are the two main items, critical items that are out on the roadways where you absolutely need an inspector there. I mean, let's face it, you don't backfill a trench properly, the road settles, compromises the pavement. The paving, if you get, poor material or material that's too cold, things like that, or it's not put down in the proper lifts, that can compromise the integrity of the road. So these packets contain instructions for the contractor. It talks about the importance of constant communications. Essentially, what we're saying is pretend an inspector is there. Here's their phone number. Here's their email. You don't have to just send them this packet at the end of the day. That inspector is available at any time during the day to talk with you about anything, and we can use technology. Your cell phone, send them a picture or a live video feed of what you're talking about so that we can resolve problems in real time. So that, the packets contain various items that you need to fill out. They have some standard PennDOT forms like a lane closure form that has to go to the press office for notifications on lane closures, things like that. And best of all, each district can adjust the scale and scope of the materials documentation that works for them. In more complex projects, obviously, you're going to need more documentation. Less complex projects, less documentation. It's just a matter of judgment, and it more or less follows normal business practices. Here's an example of our trench backfill packet. This is just like all the instructions. There's other forms that follow this, and I'll show you those in a moment, where they actually fill stuff in and complete forms, that sort of thing. But it basically contains our COVID-19 policy up here. Talks about starting the work and contacting the permit manager, inspectors, the various supervisors, those types of things. It does note failure to comply may, result in PennDOT not accepting your work. So, it clearly spells out up front what it is that you need to do. Then it goes on and provides a checklist, exact contact information, the permit number, everything you need. Over here on the second page, it once again goes down and gives you, it kind of walks you through everything that you need to do. And then lastly, over here, our contact information for every person in every county at every level, from the inspector to the supervisor to the assistant permit managers to the permit manager. Same thing with our ASPHALT form. It's more or less the same thing, but as it relates to ASPHALT. Now, we're working on developing other forms. We don't have them yet, but that and other items are coming in the future, and I'll go over those in a moment. Here's the other part of the forms where you actually fill in the information. You have your little utility sketch here showing exactly what is done. You have an area for notes. You have a tabulation sheet for lifts in your trench backfill, for example. What was put down? What type of material? How deep was the material? That type of thing. This is an actual form submitted to us from a utility company, and they use some of their software to highlight the installation. So what's really nice about this is it can integrate itself into software and technology that these utility companies are already using. So in our experience, they found this very useful. They found it very handy, and they were comforted in knowing that, in fact, their work would be certified. The other thing they send us is photos, and these are actual photos from actual virtual inspection jobs. As you can see, a guy can actually measure the depth of concrete, or anyone can measure the depth of concrete or the depth of a lift in a trench. They can demonstrate that, there's some, looks like 2A modified stone being placed, various excavation activities. There's concrete being poured. It's showing us the depth of the concrete, various things. So these accompany the forms that are filled out, combined with that constant and clear communications, basically represent the best possible alternative to us actually having a person present. And the benefits of that is, even during normal times, and it looks like this virtual inspection is going to last well beyond this pandemic, because it allows us to stretch our limited resources. We're able to cover more jobs. We're able to ensure the quality of those jobs more readily than one inspector stopping by, once every couple of days. Yeah, okay, I guess that looks good. No, now we're getting reports every day. We understand what's going on. For the most part, we got a very good level of compliance. I've highlighted the importance of the communication and coordination, and this is the biggest selling point to the contractors and utilities. It allows them to certify their work. This is in their interest, and that was very important as we sold this to them. So it didn't become, oh, great, here's one more thing PennDOT wants us to do. No, this is for you. This is to protect the integrity of your work. This is something that you should value because it helps your business. And when we came at it from that angle with them, we got great buy-in. I mean, they were really enthusiastic about doing this because they knew that it would ensure that they could continue with their work, that they didn't have the fear that the work would be somehow rejected or not accepted in any way. And most importantly, during this, very unfortunate and sad time, it allowed the economic activity to continue. It allowed critical projects to continue. It allowed people to have lights on in their houses and water come to their houses and gas flowing to their stoves. Things like that, let's face it, anytime are critically important, but especially during this pandemic. It protects the health and safety of workers because now we know they're following the rules. And as I said, we believe that now there's applications beyond the current pandemic. I know of at least 4 or 5 districts in addition to District 6 that are actively using this right now and continue to use it and seem very enthusiastic about using it. So as we move forward in the future, I was on a statewide call just last week, and everyone agreed that we want to try to work with our IT folks to potentially develop an app for this thing, continue to refine these forms, create another form that would handle driveways and or other types of work that occurs within the state right away under the permit umbrella. And for example, as we move out of the pandemic, hopefully, all that notification items contained in our initial forms that were specifically related to the pandemic, obviously that would no longer need to be there. So there's room for growth here. There's room for efficiency improvements. There's room for expansion, and we believe that this also helps protect the safety of our workers as well. They don't have to necessarily be on the jobs all the time facing the risks of traffic and noxious fumes and the like. And then the last thing was stretching our resources without overburdening the contractors. Once again, they were already filling out these forms. So really, we weren't creating extra work for them. Initially, there were some pushback with utility companies in a statewide sense, not in the Philadelphia area, because we had initiated this, we explained it to them, we got their buy-in early, we worked with them. But on a statewide perspective, I think there was some misunderstanding. And we had a conference call several months back with all the large utilities in the state. And when we explained this process to them, we showed them the standardized forms, and we went through it with them. It kind of changed their whole way they view this thing. And, we expected, continuing complaints and calls back. We never heard back from them. They stopped complaining about this, and they seem to be on board with it. So we feel that this is a great success. We feel that there are applications moving forward. And, I look forward to working with central office and the other districts to continue to move this forward. And that is my presentation. Thank you very, very much for giving me the opportunity to present here today.
Thank you so much, Fran. I am just in hearing our first couple of presentations, I'm just absolutely amazed of what is going on across this department. I'm looking forward to the remaining presentations. So at this point, we're going to turn it over to Ken to see what questions we've gotten in from our audience members.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Fran, how did virtual inspection get introduced statewide?
Okay, like I said, we had created it in District 6, and at that same time, I had been invited to participate in a statewide task force on utility and HOP policy during the time of the pandemic. And, I've been working in this area for a long, long time, and I've made very good relationships with other districts, as well as the central office folks, Mike DeZerko, Bob Pinto, Doug Tomlinson, those folks. And I told them essentially about what we were doing here and how we were introducing this practice so that these utilities could move forward. And they loved the idea. And if I don't have it here in the slide presentation, but there's an official, I believe it's a strike-off letter on official COVID policy. Virtual inspection is noted exactly in that policy as the official policy of the state. So I appreciate that they did that, and I'm grateful others embraced it.
Yeah, thanks, Fran. We'll take this one more question yet. How are you using it currently, but even more importantly, what do you see its future being, if you were to put a crystal ball on it right now?
Currently, we are still using it for quite a few jobs, like I said, namely on utility projects. And I have to tell you, it is a real enhancement to our resources. It really allows us to extend our resources to cover more projects. We save time, we save gas. We have good communications, and like I said, in working with central office, we hope to create an app. We hope to refine these forms. We hope to improve on them. We, of course, want to continue working with our partners in, utilities and other HOP areas to get their input to further refine the process. And based on my statewide call last week, I believe everyone has bought into that, and I'm very much looking forward to advancing this.
It's good to hear. Thanks, Fran.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, don't forget that if you would like to submit questions or comments for any of our presenters, there is that live event Q&A feature. You see that as like a double thought bubble. One of the thought bubbles is dark, the other is kind of whitish. There is a question mark in the middle of the darker one, so please feel free to click on that, submit your questions, comments, and we'll be happy to pass those on to the presenters here during the course of this morning's session. Danielle?
Thank you, Ken, and again, thanks, Fran. So our next presenter today is John Myler, who is the Assistant Construction Manager in PennDOT's District 11. We'd like to welcome John to today's session. John.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. This morning, I'm going to be discussing our e-construction and e-ticketing efforts within the state and in District 11, particularly for e-ticketing. So, with that, just an overview of our e-construction efforts to date. In 2015, the Federal Highway Administration's Everyday Counts 3, or better known as EDC 3, identified e-construction as a new innovation. It was so well received, it was also included in the EDC4 several years later. And the FHWA recognized PennDOT's e-construction efforts over the really quite honestly decades and profiled it as a lead state. So what are our goals? You know, our main goal with all this is to provide tools for our field personnel that increase productivity. We don't want to just digitize forms. We want to transform the way we do business. And so that doesn't, you know, we have many PDF forms out there. We could have just created digital PDF forms, had folks fill those out and put them in some electronic filing cabinet, never to be seen again or used. And we don't want to do that. We want to take all this information that we capture in those forms and make that, you know, data that we can now extract countless reports from. And as the Deputy Secretary mentioned earlier as well, these tools are important for attracting a future workforce. Again, all the future employees are using these mobile technologies every day of their life. They carry them with them constantly. They're expecting this, you know, in their careers as they move forward. And I think this is a great way to show that we're innovative and ready for that workforce to come on board. But to be honest with you, it doesn't mean it's simple. We do have an existing workforce out there. And so it's very challenging to also bring this to the current workforce that we have today and try and get them to understand what we're trying to do and taking these new technologies and replacing the way they did it. And that can be a very large challenge to our existing workforce. And finally, just a little discussion there on return on investment, that, you know, we're seeing great return on investment with these products. There is an upfront cost, but there is a benefit to them. So I came across this a couple of years ago, actually from a contractor. And this graph kind of shows just how much an industry puts money into technologies. And one of the interesting things that came about from this was construction companies spend less than 1% of revenue annually on technology. And compared to other industries like the auto industry, that's significantly higher. And if you see in that chart there, in the upper left corner, you know, information communication technology and media groups, they're obviously very high on the technology side. But, you know, what is proven here is that industries that adopt this digitalization have proven to be more productive. And so I think it's across our industry, we need to get more technology into our business in order to make it thrive. So as I mentioned, the department's been at this for really mostly all of the 2000s. Many of you are probably familiar with our ECMS system, where we do all our electronic bidding, contract management, and payments. All those things are housed in that ECMS system. And that's really our #1 and key legacy system. The other system, PPCC, that's for all of our submittal workflows. Our contractors are able to submit documents through that. We have automated workflows. Really becomes kind of our filing cabinet for project records. And lastly, as far as our legacy systems, is ECAMS. This is our materials system. So all of our suppliers are currently entering their JMFs for asphalt and concrete into this system. When we take test materials out on site, those are reported back into this system. So, you know, it's kind of simple to think of this as our materials warehouse. So those three systems really make up what we're calling our legacy systems. They retain the data. Now it's just a matter of how we access that data. And that's where the mobile construction comes into play. So we recognized that we needed to get something in the hands of the folks out in the field to access this data readily and easily. And how are we going to make that efficient for them in the field? So all those systems are web-based now at this point. But if you've ever used a mobile device, sometimes websites are not very easy to maneuver on smaller devices without a mouse. And so that's what we saw with a lot of these systems. And so we recognized, let's build applications or apps through the mobile team to further facilitate our inspectors' workloads out in the field. So many of these communicate and talk with those systems. I'm not going to get into each one of these specifically. You may know what most of them do and their functionalities, but they all touch those legacy systems in one way or another, and simplify that for our inspectors out in the field. So now we're capturing that data that we can further refine in the future. So as you get into these things, you have to remember it doesn't happen overnight. One of the greatest challenges we had with the mobile side was introducing Apple into a Microsoft world. All of our systems we've used to date were always Microsoft. So there's need for technical support, resourcing, finding experienced team members that can help with those. And even one of the great challenges I use as an example is the Apple user agreements. When we started this process, we handed that user agreement for signature over to our attorneys. They marked it up with heavily with red pen, sent it back to Apple, and they said, "Thank you very much, but we are not going to make any modifications to our policy. Our policy is what it is. We do not make modifications. Your business is not that important to us. If you want to work with us, you have to sign our agreement as is." And that became a real sticking point that could have stopped all this. And that's where it becomes important to make sure that you identify and recruit business and executive champions to support this throughout, from the top to the bottom of your agency. So that went to the secretary and quite honestly to the governor to say, are we in agreement that we can sign this Apple agreement even though our attorneys disagree? And we had that support clear up to those levels, and we were able to execute that Apple agreement unmodified and proceed forward. So you can imagine if we didn't have that support from top to bottom, this could have all ended very quickly. So again, you also have to manage those senior executive expectations. Let's be honest, a lot of times these are political positions and they may be short term, but these things don't happen overnight. They can take many years to come in place. So making sure that you have the champions to support that and explain to those that may be coming new into this, the importance of it and the benefits that really come out of these systems. And finally, training. As I mentioned before, we do have a lot of folks out there in the field already that have been here for many years. We have new folks coming in at a very high level, and making sure that we're informing them how our systems work and training them is key to making this successful over time. So as I mentioned earlier, our return on investment, here you can see this was as of mid to late 2019, so I have not really updated this since then. But you can see there are some real costs that go into developing these systems. They're not cheap. But when you look at those overall savings, it's really dramatic. You can see how much more efficient folks are being with these. One of the key ones we use with the mobile construction is all those apps. We used to carry all these paper documents, numerous manuals. Many of those were maybe in the office, not in your car. You had a lot of commute time back and forth. Now you don't have that commute. You can do all your work from the field directly and not have that downtime to get that information. So again, these aren't real savings in dollars. These are savings in efficiencies. Now, moving on to the e-ticketing side of it. You know, this is sort of an extension of those systems that I mentioned before. Through our endeavors in the e-construction world, several years ago, we came across e-ticketing for ASPHALT NICs. So why do we think that's an important thing to us to develop? It's going to eliminate paper tickets. We're going to have no more lost tickets. Provide material and tonnage verifications. No time-consuming ticket sorting. Quickly summarize tickets for the contractor's payments, so we're going to try and get contractors paid quicker. And reduce worksite hazards for inspectors frequently dodging trucks. So this is a huge thing. Anyone that's been a part of a paving project in their career, when you're getting those tickets off the driver, you're often in very narrow work zones. You're climbing up on a truck. We've had numerous near misses and hits on inspectors or personnel getting those tickets. It also means you're moving around these trucks. And again, very frequently do we see injuries and fatalities due to backing up trucks. So we want to really get people away from the trucks and not around those potential hazards that are exposed in those situations. So in District 11, we took this e-ticketing specification, and we also wanted to go a little bit farther with it. So we added GPS tracking for all the equipment associated with the paving and milling operation. This was a fully integrated GPS system with the plant scale system. It gives us the ability to measure and track material from plant to final placement destinations, and also provide real-time data with web-based systems capable on both iOS and Windows environments. So with that, in 2017, in District 11, we piloted e-ticketing on 4 group roadway projects in Allegheny County. The district special provision took e-ticketing one step further, as I mentioned, with the GPS tracking. And it resulted in a special provision of electronic delivery management for HMA, WMA materials. We also had another special provision added for tracking the delivery of milled materials to a specified plant or stockpile site. So we had numerous occasions where we potentially had millings go missing. And as that was a commodity for us in the district, that was a sensitive subject. So we wanted to make sure that we could track where that material started and ended in to make sure we got our material as properly promised. We continued those pilot projects up and through this year in 2020. And so here's just some costs that we saw associated with. So with our special provision, we put it out as a lump sum. And these numbers, you can see they really traverse that whole time frame from 2017 to 2020. And some of them are high and some of them are low. So you might question, well, why is it $10,000 and then as low as $2,000? Well, what we found is as a contractor selected a project and was the successful bidder at that $10,000, they really had spent those upfront monies on that system. And so then they just put in a much lower number to help facilitate the day-to-day needs on that project to facilitate the system. So the costs aren't really that high, but there are some costs associated with making these modifications to a plant system to facilitate the electronic ticketing. So here's an example of what one of those tickets would look like. It may be a little hard to see on the screen with the white background, but this is sort of a summary of a project. You can see the numerous dates on the left side there of tickets that we got, and the total tonnage for the project delivered, rejected, wasted, and pending acceptance from the inspector. Now, if you drill down to a specific ticket, here's a ticket, and I have this cut in half because it wouldn't fit on one screen, but this would be the upper half of the ticket, which would indicate the supplier, the date, and the mix. And the lower half has a little more interest, so that shows the tonnage for that ticket. And then on the right side here, if you notice, you'll see some information there about the daily total, the gross, the tara, and the net weight of that material. There's a spot for our inspectors to add temperatures in and waste as well. And then finally, a sign off for acceptance of that material on site. So what's next? Well, 2020 happened. The COVID suspension went into place, and as we were coming out of that, much as Fran was talking, it was, what are we going to do when we restart projects? How are we going to handle paper? What options are available? We were talking about putting paper tickets in Ziploc bags and quarantining them. And can you imagine how long that would take for payments? And so a lot of folks across the state were all kind of voicing their interest in, can we get electronic ticketing now? How do we do this? And the industry was in support of it, quite honestly, as well. So Where we're going next is e-ticketing 2.0. We've kind of coined it. It's going to be the evolution of that e-ticketing process to go statewide. So under the guidance of Kelly Barber, we really pulled together a great team of not just department personnel, but industry, from both contractors to suppliers to trucking, and brought them all in as a team to really discuss where we're going to go with this e-ticketing effort. And we also wanted to expand it to not just asphalt, but also to concrete and aggregates. So essentially where we're at as of today, we just received the comments back. They were due back as of last Friday for the new special provision that was drafted. So we'll be reviewing that and seeing what comments we got back from folks and making those modifications with a plan to go into pilots in 2021 in every district for all these materials. So we'll be reaching out to those districts in the near future to select projects to pilot this on next year for 2021 with all those materials. And then our hopes is that we'll get some feedback from that over that season and look to see how we take it in 2022. I also wanted to note that just recently, e-ticketing was named an ED6 innovation. So again, across the nation and with the FHWA, they've also recognized the importance of e-ticketing in our future endeavors. Lastly, I just want to talk about some other little things that we have going. So in the mindset of all of our innovations is we also want to think about maintenance and how, when construction's done, that project goes into maintenance hands. And so we want to make sure that we're getting that data that they may need for their attention in the future. And a great example of that was the guide rail mobile app that was put out. So when we're installing guide rail in construction, that information is then being put into the maintenance system where they're able to monitor that and source it as needed. We also want to get our contractors involved. There was a stick initiative with the APC to vet their industry and see what interests and capabilities do they have with these mobile technologies. And so we have a lot of those apps that I think we can give access to in some parts or manners that would help facilitate not just improvements for us, but for the contractors as well to increase their productivity. And lastly, RFID tag technology. This is something that's kind of out there. A couple states have been using, and I think this could be a potential benefit to us with tracking materials and being able to pull data out by scanning one of those tags. You could get MSDS sheets or testing reports or things like that, and also maybe help with future inventories. So again, a lot of great technology out there that we're going to be implementing, and along with the support of everybody else that's speaking today, there's great things that are going to be happening in the future with us. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Ken.
Yeah, thanks, John. We do have a couple of questions for you. So from a local government standpoint, are we understanding correctly that now I'm speaking from the local government's perspective here, are we understanding that when we go through our annual audit of our liquid fuels e-ticketing, will it be accepted at the local level as well?
Yeah. Hopefully, all this is not in place yet. We'll be piloting next year and see how the groups come along. It may take several years for this to fully be implemented across the state in every aspect. But yes, we have another portion of the team on there. I forgot to mention that as well from our maintenance side with the materials they purchase as well. So yes, all those would be incorporated into this, and I think those will be obviously great benefits that come out of this to automate that system.
And John, I know in some past conversations you talked about, technology is great when it works. We have a question here from an anonymous. Technical advances are great. What do you do when you're working in areas, though, where cell phones, tablets, and GPS maybe don't work for lack of signal? How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, so we have thought about that. We've talked through that with many folks. One of the things we're looking at is that whenever we approach any mobile app, we always design it to work offline. So one of the things we're looking at is that we could easily capture the testing information, put in a ticket that you can't get electronically at that time, just put in the ticket number. And then a lot of those tonnages and things like that will auto-populate once you get back to a service location. So we're also talking about how is that delivered in the truck with paper tickets now gone. They may have capabilities to airdrop an electronic ticket to you to verify who they are and what they are, and identifying trucks is a key important factor with that too. So we have some possible solutions in that, and we'll be vetting those out to see how they perform over the next season.
And then one final question for you, John. Understanding that e-ticketing is a safety improvement, getting inspectors actually away from trucks, how does that reconcile with now requiring an inspector to maybe utilize a stick thermometer in the side of a truck bed to check temperature?
Yeah, the new 408 requirement does require that, and obviously that could be a hazard as well. We'll see where technology can possibly correct that in the future. I am aware of some infrared technologies and things like that could be mounted to pavers and to trucks that perhaps in the coming years, we're able to change that policy. But as you said, the current policy is to use a stick thermometer along the side of the truck. They are on the passenger side, which is away from traffic. You're along the side of the vehicle instead of passing around it. So again, everybody needs to use caution, but we're not quite solving every possible issue out there today with e-ticketing.
John, thanks very much for your time. Danielle?
Thank you, John. Thank you, Ken. A lot of great questions coming from our audience. As a reminder, if you do have additional questions for any of our presenters, please use the chat box there on the right-hand side of your screen. So our last group of presenters today are Kelly Barber, who is the Systems Management Section Chief, and Nicholas Schroeder, who is a civil engineer, both in PennDOT's Bureau of Project Delivery. We also have Mark Gallardo, who is the Materials Manager in PennDOT's District 11. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from Kelly, Nick, and Mark, and then at the end, we'll go to any questions received from our audience. So with that, I'm going to first turn it over to Kelly. Kelly, you now have control.
Thank you, Danielle. Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to provide a brief update on the department's Augmented Reality and Transportation Initiative. To assist in moving us forward with this effort, the department was awarded federal highway stick funds this past summer to pilot AR technologies. Augmented reality is an interactive experience where a real-world environment is enhanced by a computer-generated information. So at a minimum, the department is looking to use this technology for design field activities, bridge inspection, and construction site inspection and meetings. Augmented reality provides the ability to bring the field to the office and vice versa. This technology is key with today's environment of social distancing and telework. So as you can see here to the right of the slide is an example of augmented reality. It's the usage of a Microsoft HoloLens on a hard hat. The individual wearing the HoloLens is able to share what they are seeing in the field with individuals at a different location, either in an office or elsewhere in the field on someone else's individual iPad. So depending upon the program used within the HoloLens, they may be able to view their model real time at the project site, share documents, and take field measurements, all while conferencing in their team members. Another example is the usage of a handheld device allowing an individual or team to walk their project live with their design and then having the mesh overlay of what that future project site is going to look like. This will help in moving forward with constructability reviews and also potentially identifying any conflicts within the field, whether it's potentially with utilities moving forward. The department's team held a kickoff meeting with industry partners and federal highways on September 29th. As a part of this effort, ACECPA members have shared with the department their experiences, both pros and cons to the AR technologies and how they've been utilizing it to date. They are all equally as excited as I am with this technology moving forward. One of their products that they actually were utilizing a lot with all those firms was actually Bentley's Concept Station. So that will help us bring to life our projects early on in the process during the planning and programming stage and as we move throughout for public involvement. It'll bring those projects to reality for those interested in viewing the project and what will be at the end. The department is currently piloting 2 forms of augmented reality, and Nick and Mark will be sharing those projects with you here shortly. We are planning on exploring additional technologies in 2021, and we'll be providing recommendations once those pilots are complete. If you have any questions or ideas for augmented reality usage in transportation, please reach out and share those with us. We have just started this effort and are looking forward to its possibilities. Danielle, if you want to switch it over to the next presenter, please.
Okay, Nick, you now have.
All right, thank you, Kelly. As Danielle said, my name is Nicholas Schroeder. I work in our structural materials section at Central Office. We primarily oversee the shop inspection of fabricated structural steel products and precast items. So we're currently in the process of piloting 2 technologies on the I-95 Betsy Ross project located in District 6, and we're doing so via special provision. Those technologies being remote visual inspection and phased array ultrasonic testing with an artificial intelligence component. Unfortunately, the fabrication aspect of this project has not started yet. It was proposed to start in January, but I think that's being pushed out a little further due to scheduling issues. However, we were provided some of the equipment just for our inspectors to get familiarized with. So I have a little bit of that, a little bit to share with you. So the remote visual inspection, you can see here, it's an OSHA compliant hard hat attachment. It has a camera and an extended arm that acts as a microphone and also a window for viewing shared files. So we have consultant inspectors in our fabrication facilities overseeing work as it's being processed. So the capabilities for them will be able to live stream and communicate directly with project managers, capture photos, and record videos that can be shared later on. From a remote user standpoint, the project manager, they have the ability to zoom the camera during live feed, capture photos, and also share and annotate documents that will be populated into that microphone extended arm window. So the fabricator was provided some lenience with selecting a system that complied with the special provision. And one of the unique features for the system that they chose was that based on available bandwidth, this system does get plugged into a dedicated phone line that acts as a Wi-Fi enabler. And based on available bandwidth, it optimizes image quality. So that's one of the unique features of the system that they chose. So in our current times, you can imagine that this would be especially useful during COVID, as Fran has mentioned earlier, for the construction aspect. So the fabrication facilities that we oversee are actually nationwide. We have active facilities in Nebraska, Utah, Virginia, Maryland, Ohio. So from our standpoint at structural materials section, it would allow project managers to access multiple fabrications facilities daily to oversee issues that might arise. So another benefit is that it reduces the number of follow-up conversations. It allows the inspector and project manager and whoever else on the staff to gain an understanding of the issue, both seeing the same thing at the same time and get that understanding, because understanding's half the battle. So it also, from our stance, we don't really have a whole lot of fabrication issues. And the current project that we're working on, it's about 30 girders. I think they're all nothing really abstract. So from a pilot standpoint, we we defined some predefined, or we identified some predefined hold points to use the system and actually gain an understanding of how well it's going to work. So we're looking at this from from an hour a day, hour every other day, to capture fabrication from start to finish, throughout those 30 girders that'll be fabricated over that month and a half, and see how well it works in each aspect. So there's obviously some lessons to be learned with this. The fabrication facility is no different than a construction site. It might be a little worse because you have walls containing the noise, but that's one of the lessons to be learned. How well does the live stream communication, how well will it work with being able to interact with an inspector and gain that understanding of the issue? And then also from the remote user standpoint, how good is that image quality when the bandwidth is optimizing the images, and what's the depth perception going to be? Can a remote user really understand what's being looked at? So switching gears here a little bit, but staying with the digital delivery theme, phased array ultrasonic testing. It's a non-destructive test method that's being proposed for use on critical welds. Our current practice is radiographic testing, and fabricators are pushing to replace that with this advanced ultrasonic practice. So the benefits of this is that you gain advanced visual aids. There's potential to reduce reduce inspection times, which ultimately will reduce costs. You reduce the human factor in the interpretation of data files. You still maintain a permanent record like we would with a X-ray or radiographic test. So the advanced visual aids, traditionally we have a waveform output that you can see here in the bottom left. And we get that from ultrasonic testing with a single element. And so the phased array approach, it actually uses more than one element. And you get, let's say you have 16 elements sending signals into a weld. You get 16 waveform outputs, and that all gets integrated all that data gets integrated into a single advanced visual aid. And you can see here on the right the different views that you would get. You would get a plan view, a cross section, an end view, but you still maintain that waveform output. And basically what that does, it allows you to gain a better understanding of what you're looking at and assess the potential discontinuities that exist within a component, if any at all. So just to show you what those outputs look like here, you can see you get the cross section, you get the plan view, you get the end view, and you still maintain that waveform output. And you can imagine looking at the waveform output, you wouldn't really have a good understanding of what the other images are doing without having the probe in your hand yourself and actually doing a little bit more advanced analysis that we currently do now. So this adds that advanced visual component. So we're taking it a step further than just a phased array test. Like I said, we also want to reduce some human interpretation aspect of it. So we integrated into the special provision and an AI component, and it's actually it's a assisted data analysis component, if you will. So all that data gets collected, and then it gets post-processed into a secondary program, and that program first scans through the data and assesses how well it was collected. Is there any skips in the data? Was there any loss of data? And then afterwards, it'll search through and evaluate if there's any discontinuities there, measure them, and provide direct outputs. Currently, this would be done by a human. It could take 5-10 minutes or more for an individual weld based on how long and how thick it is. By using this secondary system, it happens almost within seconds. So, and this system has two outputs. It has the secondary system output that you can see here on the right, where it would identify any potential discontinuities that need to be further evaluated and possibly repaired. but it also has a very detailed spreadsheet, and I'll show you that here. A very detailed spreadsheet that gives you an analysis of every data point that was collected, and this is just a summary of that spreadsheet, but there's individual sheets that follow this for each data point. It's making an assessment of how well each point was collected, and if there is any possible discontinuities. So that's just a little bit of what we're doing here at the structural materials section, and I'll turn it back over to Danielle.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on now to Mark Gallardo from District 11. So Mark, I'm going to be giving you control here. Right, you now have control, Mark.
All right, thanks, Danielle. All right, so my name is Mark Gallardo, and I'm the District Materials Manager for District 11. And today I'll be going over something that we're currently piloting, and that is VAT, which stands for Virtual Asphalt Acceptance Testing. And this is basically a modification to our HOLA testing. So what exactly is VAT and how did it originate? Well, like I said, it's a modification to our HOLA special provision where we're utilizing high definition cameras. For those who aren't familiar, HOLA is the acronym for Hands-on Local Acceptance, where the districts perform the asphalt acceptance testing locally. And these tests are performed by a PennDOT materials inspector and witnessed by the asphalt producer's certified technician. The difference here is with VAT HOLA, the testing is performed by the asphalt producer's certified technician, and it's witnessed remotely by the PennDOT materials inspector via the HD cameras. And this was proposed by Lindy Paving and PAPA. So basically proposed by the industry as an option for 100% state-funded projects and not necessarily a permanent replacement for our current standard HOLA procedures. And it was initially developed to ensure COVID-19 protocols can be met. As we all know, at the start of the COVID-19, there were some very strict protocols, and we wanted to ensure that we can continue local acceptance testing safely. Witnessing these test procedures via cameras mean that our inspectors and the technicians don't have to be in the same lab. And as I mentioned, we're currently piloting it in District 11 for ECMS 105248. So some of the specifics for our pilot project. We required verification samples so we can gather some data for companion loose box samples per sublot. The verification testing is performed by department personnel, and then the number of tests depend on the lot size. So if the lot is n equals 3, then the representative will randomly test one sublot. And then if it's n equals 4 or greater, then the representative will randomly test 2 sublots. And we're taking these verification test results and comparing them to the acceptance test results. So why use VAT HOLA? What are the benefits of using VAT HOLA? It's another option for acceptance testing in HOLA. Again, this isn't proposed to be a permanent replacement, but as an option. The testing can be witnessed from virtually anywhere where we have internet connection. No stoppage or delays to acceptance testing. We certainly hope that there's no future shutdown due to COVID or for any other reason, but if there is, the testing could continue. And last, potential cost savings for the department. Basically, less travel time and less travel distance for our inspectors. And then the picture there is basically one of our materials inspectors witnessing some of the testing being done at the lab. What have we learned so far, and what are some of our concerns? Our number one concern is security. We want to be sure that the samples are secured. And then as you can see from the bottom left picture right here, we're able to verify the security tags for the samples via the camera. But what exactly happens if the cameras malfunction? Obviously, this is something that our group will have to discuss and figure out how we would want to handle that in the future. The second is efficiency. When our inspectors have to take their breaks and or their lunch, the samples have to be secured, and locking up the samples and verifying the security tags could take quite a bit of time. And lastly is the equipment. Our department laptop screen is fairly small, as you can see from this picture. And the cameras have to be up at all times to ensure that every part of the test is witnessed and the samples are secured. So basically only having one screen prevents the inspector from having eCams or maybe a spreadsheet open for entering their test results. And then this is basically just a picture of the camera viewpoints at the Lindy's facilities. They have 11 different cameras basically spaced throughout their entire lab. And that's about it.
Hey, thank you so much, Mark. We'll now go to Ken for any questions that have come in for Kelly, Nick, and Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. A question here for Nick is, what is the platform that is being used to live stream the remote visual inspection?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We worked closely with the fabricator when they selected the system, and just so we ensured ourselves that we would have access to the live stream aspect. And the platform they're actually using is web-based, so it's similar to Microsoft Teams, like we're using here, where as long as you have the link, you have access. You don't have to actually have an app installed on your computer. We ran into an issue where we're having apps installed on our computer was a IT security issue. So that's one of the other unique features about the system that they chose.
And for Mark Gallardo, is there a specific number of cameras that are required?
Yeah, so we didn't add a specific requirement in the specs. The number of cameras would basically just depend on the size of the lab. For our particular case, Lindy's lab is fairly spacious and there are different areas for the specific test. So that's why they decided to install 11 different cameras to basically ensure that everything can be witnessed without any issues.
And those cameras, are they recording?
Lindy stated that they could have a feature added to allow recording, but for right now, we decided to not allow the recording. We basically wanted the person witnessing the test to be actively engaged and to speak up and notify the technician whenever he or she witnesses any discrepancies during the testing.
Okay, thank you. Danielle, we do have questions from the various presenters in the earlier parts of the session here this morning. So if you'd like me to go through those, I can.
Yeah, that would be great, Ken. It looks like we still have about 16 minutes left. So whatever other questions have come in, we want to circle back to those. And again, reminder to the audience, if you do have any further questions, please type them in the chat box. We're going to try to get to as many as we can here before the session ends.
Okay, very good. I'll take it from the top of the list. We have about 7 questions that are outstanding, so I'll get through as many as I can. For Alan Melly, as it relates to digital delivery, what is the cost to do design as we now do it, and what is the cost per project using digital delivery? Is there a comparison there?
There is actually a nationwide effort underway to try to figure out that exact cost for what digital delivery, is really going to save us. Again, this is a fairly new technology. Some of the nationwide leading states have only done a handful of these projects, so it's not something that is, in practice quite a bit, and it's moving that direction. But again, we're still on the leading edge of this, so I do not have that information at this point as far as the difference in cost. But I can look at trying to obtain any of that.
Another one for you, Alan, is do you intend to upload the as-built 3D into Maintenance IQ?
Well, that's something that we are going to have to investigate. Again, as we work through these processes, we are going to be working with our process owners in each area of our business unit, because this initiative is going to touch our entire business, from design, construction, maintenance. Everybody's going to have a part in this, and it's going to affect the way we do business. So that is something we will investigate as we move forward and get into that aspect, but more than likely something will be integrated in with Maintenance IQ.
Last question for you, Alan. What is the timing to use the technology for local projects optionally, as you noted?
Really, I mean, they can follow along right as we're doing it now. Again, with a lot of our what we call sister agencies, DEP, your courthouses, when you're requiring right away, they're still going to require plans per se. But do those plans have to be the way they are shown today? Not necessarily. So what we're going to do is create views. So those views will be, graphic representations of the model and have the pertinent information that, they're going to need. So really, there's no limit as to when, a local can start doing this. Now, we're working through the process. Again, if they want to work through it with us and be part of this team as we're moving forward, please feel free to reach out to me, and we can, bring you right along as we're doing this. Now, we are going to create a website. It's not up and running yet, but that way, anybody that wants to follow along with, the progress that we're making, the, initiatives as far as what we're implementing, and so forth, we'll be able to follow right along with that on the website, because we will have metrics and showing exactly where we're at, what we're doing, and the success or failure of, what we're doing.
Okay, thank you, Alan. As we wait for Ken to compile a few additional questions that are coming in for the audience, just a couple of reminders. Again, we invite you to check out our virtual exhibit hall, which is available on our event website. That's www.penndot.gov/Innovations Week. There are more than 50 innovations on display as part of our virtual exhibit hall. We also have a contact form out there, so if you have questions about any of the innovations, use that contact form to submit your question. And we'll get you connected with the subject matter expert. Again, following today's session, we will make recordings available. They'll probably be available on the event website within the next week or so. Also, as a reminder, if you click on the link in the calendar invitation you received to participate in today's session, you will be able to listen to a playback of this session. So there's a couple of different options if you missed any parts of the session or you just want to go back and re-listen to things. So I'll go back to Ken for any additional questions that have come in.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. We have 4 left right now. Unmanned aerial systems, Jason and Kevin. Question for you. Has there been any discussions regarding more maintenance applications?
I mean, there's lots of discussions. I'm not sure what type of applications they're looking at, but there's nothing prohibiting us from looking at more maintenance applications. A big one that Kevin sort of touched on was the stockpiles and utilizing the quantity calculations of materials with the GPS capabilities. So that's a big one that we're already using. But I mean, similar to construction projects, yeah, we were looking at also maybe there's a potential to fly a road that's part of a paving project and utilizing those capabilities to identify like inlets that are low with like an elevation heat map type of thing. So there's so many applications with the landslides, and we used it in our district to fly up a slope where we were having a drainage problem. We couldn't get people safely up the slope, so we used a drone to fly up to investigate what was going on. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to use it in maintenance is sort of the short answer.
Great, thanks Kevin. Fran, regarding virtual field inspections, I have a question here. In terms of on-site safety, how is compliance with OSHA and PennDOT requirements verified? In addition, if a near miss occurs, how is that reported?
Thank you. Obviously, there are some limitations to this technology and what all we can do with it. Although I will say it's in its infancy. I mean, we only just created it, and we're seeking to refine it in so many ways, including I've heard a couple of presentations this morning from John and Nick on other applications that, especially that e-ticketing, that could be incorporated into this. That doesn't directly affect the OSHA, but the contractors also bear some responsibility in those areas as far as compliance with safety. Could we drive a detour route? Could we inspect a work zone with it? Perhaps with the virtual inspection goggles and or other technologies, maybe we could. That's a very good question, and I don't have a 100% solid answer for it today, but I will say that we're looking to refine and improve on this thing over time.
Final question for you. How on-site testing was handled during the project?
For HOPs, the testing requirements are not as stringent as they are for construction of PennDOT projects. So what we basically did was just accept the testing results as performed by the contractor. Now, okay, perhaps that's a bit of a leap of faith there, but in the HOP world, we're also holding a security on all of the work to ensure its quality over the long term, and we hold that for 2 years after the completion of the project. So it is in the contractor's interest to do the work correctly. I'm not saying we should completely, trust and turn a blind eye, which is why we have this virtual inspection, but it more or less follows the trust but verify principle.
Very good. Last question I have on the session for this morning is actually directed to John Myler regarding e-construction and e-ticketing. What about the considerations of current laws that are out there requiring the truck drivers to carry paper copies for transportation?
Yeah, great question. So one of the next steps that we have in our committee is to approach the state police with what we're proposing to verify what needs or issues they may have with potentially a truck driver not having a ticket in the vehicle. So once we get that feedback, we should be able to move forward with, again, how do we specify what is required to be in a truck hauling some materials for us.
Very good. Thanks, John. Danielle?
Thanks, Ken. We still have about 7 minutes left till the top of the hour here, so we'll just leave the chat open for a few moments left. If any of you have questions for our speakers, they're going to hang on the line for a little bit. And so feel free to submit those now via the chat box. And then, Ken, if you do get any in, we'll just go right to you.
That sounds good. And I would ask anybody submitting a question now in chat, if you wouldn't mind, please indicating which speaker it's intended for.
Thanks, Ken.
Sure. I have a question here for Jason Zhang. Jason, have drones assisted in any way with conducting business throughout the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was talked about when we were trying to restart the construction projects, and actually Jim Fornger from District 1 at the time led the charge to try to get the drones utilized to what we were calling risk-based inspections. And I think the limitation is, I mean, we have done a bit of it here in District 11. As Kevin mentioned, we did do a final inspection with the use of a drone where we did a video and then we sent it out to a lot of the folks to try to help, let people see the project without actually going out and congregating in the field. So it's a big help on the slide projects again too, where it just helps keeping people from walking around on a slope. So as much as we can, the big limitation right now, I mean, for most of the state is just the limited amount of drones that we have. And the other part of it is just trying to get pilots, because right now that training program isn't out there just yet. It's in development. So right now you have to do the studying on your own. You have to to get the FCC license. So you have to do your own studying and you have to go out and take the test on your own and pass it. And then we were reimbursing for that. But just that's the limitation right now. We have gotten consultants involved as well. So we've got consultants flying projects as well with their drone pilots. So we're trying to use them as much as we can, and obviously to enhance social distancing as much as we can. So that answers that.
Were drones purchased for districts 1 and 11?
Yes.
Okay. And so I guess as you're indicating that PennDOT, do they have a formalized training program at this point? I think you're saying no, right?
It's in development, but we don't have it yet.
Okay, very good. And on the e-construction side, John Myler, will this be mandatory for all suppliers?
So eventually, I will say yes. But again, going back to some of my presentation, we don't expect this stuff to happen overnight. We know there's going to be challenges across the industry. Some of the suppliers have limited connectivity or smaller plants or limited plants. So there's going to be some challenges along the way. So it won't be fully required 100% day one, but the eventual goal in several years is that we do have this 100% compliant.
I have a comment here, a lot of great information today. As a whole, how soon will the local world see these innovations we've been talking about actually filter their way to use in a more widespread fashion? It's a general comment.
I would say that virtual inspection is happening now. It's been happening since the beginning of this unfortunate pandemic, and it's continuing to occur, and we hope to refine it and improve it for the future.
Yeah, and maybe on
also
the...
I have here a, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, I was going to say, also on the e-construction side, you know, with our local projects that we coordinate with municipalities, they're in the ECMS system now. We're using the PPCC aspects and things like that. So again, as this stuff rolls out, it'll kind of roll right into those projects for the locals as well.
Good, thank you. And I did receive a comment here from Michelle, and it seems like a good note to come toward close, Danielle. Michelle saying thank you, great discussion this morning.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, my sincerest thanks to all of our presenters today. Great presentations, great information. Just again, great work that is occurring across this department. We also thank you to all of our attendees for participating today. On that note, we are at the top of the hour, so we are going to go ahead and conclude today's session. So thanks again for joining us.